to me, fairly early on in my training, something felt off, and I was just like, we're not really getting to know our patients. We're not really understanding the problems going on in their lives, and we're treating them with these medications all under the guise of, maybe they have some mysterious mental illness. This chronic, mysterious, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and we've got these treatments for it. And so that felt intuitively off to me, because I'm more of a, understand the problem. And then once you understand the problem, you can fix it. It just makes sense. We weren't doing that. And then I started to notice that it just didn't work. And rarely did I put someone on a psychiatric medication and they were just fine. It was just like sail off into the sunset, no more symptoms, and they're okay. In fact, a lot of the times, many of them, they developed tolerance, sometimes within 3 to 6 months, and we had to keep on going up on the dose. Eventually, they would be maxed out on the dose, and we'd have to add another drug, and so on and so forth, until we had someone on 5 drugs and, really not doing well. And so, and eventually you would hit this dead end, and I would find myself scratching my head going, well, we've got this guy essentially, on 5 different drugs, really flat, really not getting any better. And instead of really questioning, maybe this isn't working, or maybe these drugs were never meant to be prescribed in these multi-cocktails. Maybe the drugs are the problem. We wouldn't do that. We, would send people to go and get ECT, and they just got so sick, and some of them never got better. And the other thing that was really bothering me during this time was that we kept on telling patients that these drugs were easy to come off, and that the withdrawal was mild and self-limiting. And at the same time all of this is going on, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing that these drugs are incredibly difficult to stop, and that also, my colleagues are misdiagnosing withdrawal as new mental illnesses. And so I started feeling like I was going crazy, because no one seemed to be talking about the fact that there were so many people that this system was not working for at all. In fact, I dare say probably the majority of people, I would see, more than 50% would eventually run into these types of problems. And I just felt like I was going insane. Is no one else seeing this? Is no one else talking about, the fact that these drugs simply stop working long-term in a big group of people, and then they're really hard to come off? And so that was the sort of the genesis of the practice, was that, wow, there's a huge number of people out there who have been put on these medications. They're not helping them. They're kind of trapped on them. When they try and come off, they're having horrific problems. And we don't have a workforce that's really trained to help them. And so that's the problem that I set out to solve. And that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
As you were having these observations, and it was so alarming to you, were you raising these questions to supervisors, colleagues, fellow psychiatrists, and what were their responses?
I'll talk about the supervisors, and this was mainly in residency. I felt like I was just annoying them, and that it's like, I got the feeling like this is the way, that it's almost, I think, to practice in that way where you diagnose patients just off symptom checklists and then give them drugs according to, FDA labels to me, it's like you really drink the Kool-Aid, and the Kool-Aid you need to consume is that mental illness is chronic and poorly understood, and there's not much you can do about it, especially with the depression and anxiety. And so when I was having questions like, maybe the drug's making them worse, maybe we're simply not fixing the problems in their lives because we don't understand them, it would be kind of parried away or waved away, depression, chronic, scary mental illness, and really all these other things that you're worried about, side effects, they're not that common. These drugs are safe and well tolerated, problems in their life, surely they're not to the degree that they could cause this type of suffering. And so I felt that there was this huge biological culture where I trained, and I think it's mostly everywhere in the US, where most kind of psychiatrists, mainstream psychiatrists, tend to view things as very biological and just kind of coming up out of someone's genes. And so when I was bringing it up, I was just making things complicated. We have a model, it works, we're practicing according to the guidelines, and here's someone making things difficult. And, I've got 20 patients to see today, and this is how I do things. And, don't make my job any more difficult. Could you just be a team player and just kind of go along with things, because I've got stuff to do. That was
Right.
That was the general feeling that I got.